Speak Your Mind Radio is an internet radio community on D-Live, broadcasting abducted child alerts, missing person cases, and bringing breaking and top news to you affecting our world, along with music and talk radio.
Thanks for listening.
Good evening, YouTubers and followers. Here with another update on the Nashville bombing. That happened on Christmas Day. Deputies right now are at a scene of a suspicious truck near Nashville. It is actually in Lebanon, Tennessee. Witnesses reported to law enforcement that they heard an audio recording warning people to evacuate the area, similar to the recording that was played prior to the Nashville bombing on Christmas Day. According to Rutherford County Sheriff's Office, the box truck was parked at the Crossroads Market convenience store in Walter Hill, Tennessee. People called law enforcement around 10:30 a.m. this morning to report that it was playing an audio recording warning people to evacuate the area, similar to the audio recording that played prior to the Nashville bombing on Christmas Day. According to the sheriff's office, the truck left the convenience store, traveled from Rutherford
to breaking news alert.
County into Wilson
Good afternoon,
County,
I'm Alex Dennis. We want to take you live to the scene in Lebanon right now, where
Murphy
authorities have descended upon a road. They have found a white box truck that they believe to be suspicious. Here's a live look from the scene right now. The Rutherford County Sheriff's Office says that the box truck was originally parked at a store playing audio similar to the Christmas explosion music that was playing in Nashville. Chelsea Beimfor is live on the scene for us, and she has been giving us an update throughout the afternoon. This all happened around noon. Chelsea, are you with us right now?
Yep, Alex, we're out here on Highway 231 South near the Cedars of Lebanon State Park. You can see down the road here there are dozens of police cars checking out what they're calling a suspicious vehicle. It is a white box truck. We know it was parked earlier today at a convenience store in Rutherford County. Authorities say it was playing an audio recording similar to that of the RV that exploded in downtown Nashville on Christmas morning. They did not tell us whether that was the recording of the woman's voice talking about the bomb that was going to be detonated, or if it was the music that had been playing. We are here. I don't know if we have this video, if we can share with you. If not, we can tell you there was a robot out here checking out that vehicle. Actually, it looks like it might be there. I don't know, Alex, if you can see it in the shot we have up right now.
Yes,
it looks like
Chelsea,
there might
moments
still
ago,
be
we
a
did see
robot
it
checking out the
deployed.
scene.
Moments ago, we saw it deployed, and you are right. I know your vantage point,
Okay.
the authorities have you far back for safety reasons, but yes, we are seeing it. Go ahead and explain what you found.
Okay, I'm going to have my photographer zoom in if she can. Okay, she says she did. So, yeah, presumably it's checking out that truck to see if there are any bombs or explosives. And like you said, we are probably a mile or so back, so we're having a hard time from our vantage point seeing what's going on here. But according to the Rutherford County Sheriff's Office, the driver has been detained. They said in a press release the driver had been detained. We don't know if it was a man or a woman, but we have reached out to them for further clarification about what happened. It's unclear if the driver went willingly or if the driver may have exited the vehicle and fled on foot, but that's something that we are checking on as well. Someone on the scene here also just told us that Rutherford County is leading the investigation. There are also Wilson County deputies out here and Tennessee Highway Patrol surveying the situation. Alex?
Chelsea, yesterday evening as well, you were there with some breaking news out of Antioch. We do know that ABC News has confirmed a person of interest, 63-year-old Anthony Warner. He was connected to a property in Antioch. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you found out last night?
Yes, Alex, and the thing we were focusing on out there was his RV that neighbors tell us was parked in his backyard there on that duplex on Bakertown Road. So far today, you know, I would call it a little bit suspicious that there is also a large white truck that authorities are looking into right now, but no one has confirmed if these two are related. All we know, again, is that there was a similar audio recording coming from this truck this morning that was parked at a convenience store in Rutherford County. Someone noticed the similarity and called it in to authorities.
All right, Chelsea Bimefort, thank you for standing by. If, in fact, you missed the press conference this morning that gave more detail about what was being played from that RV, it was the mid-1960s classic song Downtown by Petula Clark. So we are not sure what is being played from that white box truck that had similarities, but again, that is something for you. We also heard from some of the officers that were on the scene. We know that 6 responded, but one in particular said it was the audio that he specifically remembers, that it felt like whoever was behind them was actually watching them because surveillance cameras were above the mirror of the RV. I know that we were working to get that sound for you. Do we have that we can have people at home listen to that for you? If not, we can make sure that you will be continuing to have coverage on WKRN.com. We will be streaming this picture for you. There is a press conference that will be happening in about an hour at 4 o'clock. We will bring that live to you as well and work to get all of this information as we try to piece together exactly what is going here following the Nashville bombing on Christmas morning. Again, we will return to programming, but we will see you in about an hour.
Okay, now I'm going to bring you into that press conference that was held earlier this evening, and then I'll take you into the first responders. They actually spoke to the media this morning. They talked about how they worked to evacuate minutes before the explosion went off. So let's go ahead and go in and look to that.
Following leads, but right now there is no indication that any other persons were involved. We've reviewed hours of security video surrounding the recreational vehicle, as well as we saw no other people involved or around that vehicle. Again, this information is what we know after just a few days of investigative efforts. Crucial tips from the public, corroborated by other investigative activity by our team, initially identified a likely suspect. Some expert work by the Tennessee Highway Patrol subsequently uncovered a vehicle identification number from the remains of the suspect's RV that were positively matched to a vehicle registered to that individual. We continue to ask that those who may have known the suspect or encountered him contact our team at the 1-800-CALL-FBI phone number. These pieces of information will help us understand the suspect's motives. These answers won't come quickly and will still require a lot of our team's effort. Though we may be able to answer some of these questions as our investigation continues, none of those answers will ever be enough for those who have been affected by this event. We still have work to do. Our evidence response teams will continue to process the scene downtown, and our agents will continue to follow on each and every tip that we receive. As is often said by the FBI, the greatest crime-fighting weapon we have is the cooperation of all law enforcement with the help and understanding of the citizens we serve. Thank you, and I'd like to now turn it over to ATF Special Agent in Charge French.
Thank you. My name is Mickey French. I'm the Special Agent in Charge for the ATF Nashville Field Division. I'd like to commend all my fellow state and local partners. We've had a tremendous working relationship in this investigation. ATF's brought unique resources to this investigation to include the National Center for Explosives Training and Research, which we call NCETR. ATF's accredited national response team and all of its specialists, as well as the United States Bomb Data Center. These were crucial and instrumental to provide links and resources in this investigation. Additionally, the ability to leverage technology with traditional law enforcement techniques has been crucial in bringing this case to a relatively close. Although we still have a lot of investigation to do, we've gotten off to a great partnership and great start, and it's been tremendous. Thank you.
I cannot truly describe all the hard work that has gone into this investigation since Friday's explosion. We've had hundreds of ATF, FBI, THP and TBI partnered with us in this investigation, and we can tell you that Anthony Warner is the man believed to be responsible for this horrible crime. There is no indication presently that anyone else was involved in this crime. As I've said earlier and several times before, Nashville is considered safe. There are no known threats against this city. A renewed curfew is going into effect beginning at 4:30 this afternoon in the area impacted by the blast. It'll be James Robinson Parkway, the 4th Avenue, the Broadway, and the Cumberland River. At noon tomorrow, the curfew will be in place, narrowed into the impacted area around Union, 4th Avenue North, Broadway, and the Cumberland River. The footprint will get smaller as processing of the blast scene continues by the FBI and the ATF. Thank you.
Okay, at this time we'll try to take a few questions. I know it's kind of hard to hear out here, and we'll address it to the appropriate agency.
Was that about motives or why you wanted to set this method bomb?
Just a second.
I didn't hear the question.
Anything on motive or why he wanted to set off this bomb?
That's still all early in the investigation right now.
I have a question for the FBI prior to this incident.
I'm sorry.
Was Warner on any authority's radar prior to the explosion?
No, he was not.
Can you talk about the VIN? Was it a VIN number that was found, and how that was?
The VIN number. You want to talk about that?
VIN number. How you were? Because this blast, this is a massive blast. How were you able to find that VIN number?
Well, our special agents with Tennessee Highway Patrol are trained in that. We have responsibilities there, and they were able to come out starting Christmas night and then coming again once daylight, came up the next day, yesterday, and just help identify on particular vehicle parts.
So it was a vehicle part that you found in the debris that ultimately led to your identification?
I can't answer that exactly. Vehicle parts help connect the vehicle to the suspect. I believe tips and other information came in to help identify him.
Question for the FBI. I was curious regarding the actual arresting of the. I know that there have been associates of Warner that have been questioned about a 5B paranoia that he may have had. What can you tell us about that?
So right now we're looking at any and all possible motives. We're not at a position where we can speculate on that now. We are interviewing individuals that we've identified that are known to the suspect. We are also asking the public to, if they know him, they know I've spoken to him or know his ideology or anything that might have motivated him, we're interested in speaking to you. So again, we're looking for those tips.
What type of explosives is there here?
That is still under investigation. We're collecting evidence from the crime scene is being processed at our laboratory.
Have you been able to build a timeline of the days surrounding his life?
We're still working on all those.
Anything you can say about what was inside his home? Any sort of evidence that you collected there? Letters?
We can't comment on that at this point.
It's clear how 5G, that is one of the many leads that you are investigating, one of the many ones that you are.
We're aware of certain things online, and we're looking at every possible angle.
Do you consider this domestic terrorism at this point?
I'm sorry.
Lived alone or if you had family in the area?
We can't comment on any of that right now.
Can you talk about the fact that this DNA match is made so quickly? We always hear, it takes such a long time to get a DNA match. Can you talk a little bit about
So I can comment on that briefly. So the question was regarding how we were able to quickly match the DNA. Because we had a known suspect at the time, we were able to have a known sample and then collect some items from the suspect for some relatives as well, and be able to match that DNA positively was his. When we're just matching two samples, it can be done rather quickly.
Other than relative?
I can't comment on where we got it from.
Do you consider this domestic terrorism?
I can't comment at this point.
Can you confirm that you found dog DNA at the scene and whether or not there were found parts of a dog?
We have no information at this point of that.
What would make it?
Okay, last question.
What would make this an act of domestic terrorism? What would it take to make this event an act of domestic terrorism?
Sure. When we assess an event for domestic terrorism nexus, it has to be tied to an ideology. It's the use of force or violence.
John Drake will speak with you briefly about our 5 officers, and then we'll introduce the officers to you.
Ben,
First, Chief Swan.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. If there are any further updates, We'll let you know via our social media channels.
Just to give a quick
our
update on the infrastructure.
Appreciate it. Thank you all for your patience.
As we work with our federal partners, law enforcement partners, and the footprint shrinks as far as the investigation, they will release the properties back to Metro. Once that happens, we will do a preliminary sweep. We'll have our public works, codes department, fire department, along with all utility districts that will go into the affected area just to make sure that it is safe. Then we will release that back to our business partners and residence owners. So I'm happy to announce this morning between 4th and 5th Avenue down to Broadway will be open. So as of 10 a.m., we will release that. We're doing the sweep right now as far as our preliminary sweep with all our partners I mentioned earlier. We'll let our business partners come in. That liaison will be from the Office of Emergency Management working with our downtown partnership. As far as the communication update, we know that AT&T yesterday as of 8:30 last night, they've restored all the mobile communication. And then this morning, they got back into the workflow, and there will be times where we will lose communication because they are trying to restore the 4th floor. At the 4th floor, that will get our critical infrastructure back into play. And that's internet, along with landlines and our 911 system. They're feeling very confident by the end of the day. They will have us up and running at full capacity. But please remember that there are a lot of moving parts and there are a lot of things that happens, and we will try to address that as it happens. So again, we appreciate everybody's patience, and we will proceed with getting Nashville back on the road of reopening. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And then very quickly this morning, I just talked to Senator Blackburn, and she was reporting to me on a conversation she had with the President. Grateful to her, Governor Lee, the delegation, Congressman Cooper, Fleshman, Rose, that federal help will be a priority here for rebuilding in Nashville. And of course, it needs to be. Our businesses have suffered a lot with COVID, and this doesn't need to add to that difficulty. And so everybody's working together really well to try to make that happen as quickly as possible. Today I want to recognize our 6 officers who saved lives here in Nashville. It's a great thing that our city has such heroes. Officer Llewellyn, Tapping, Cypress, Wells, Hosey, Sergeant Miller. You know, their actions saved lives, and I think they may consider what they did was just a regular part of their duties. But we in Nashville know it was extraordinary, and it's thrilling to have them in our community, and we need to recognize their heroism. I know they're not accustomed to all of this publicity, but it's marvelous that we can celebrate the courage in our community. And the entire nation, I think, is grateful and deeply interested in hearing from them. And with that, let me turn this over to our Chief Drake, to do the introduction. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. Before the officers say a few words, I'd like to reiterate that we feel Nashville is safe. There are no known threats against this city at this time. But that's not what I wanted to talk about today. I want to talk about our men and women of our police department who do heroic efforts every day. But on this particular incident, officers responded to a shots fired call, and unknowing anything else at the time, they began hearing announcements that something was about to detonate coming from an RV. Immediately, they didn't think about their own lives. They didn't think about protecting themselves. They thought about the citizens of Nashville and protecting them. And they went about knocking on doors, and had they not made their efforts, we'd be talking about the tragedy of people and lives lost. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over to our heroes. They may not think they're heroes because they go about this job each and every day, but they are our heroes, and they had a really heroic effort that morning. Thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our 5 officers. Sergeant Miller is traveling out of town this morning and couldn't be here, but these 5 officers behind me graciously agreed to speak with each of you. What I've asked them to do is to come up one by one and talk about their response on Friday morning, starting with the officer who arrived first and then the other officers in that order. First, I would like to introduce you to Officer Tyler Llewellyn, Central Precinct overnight shift. Officer Llewellyn.
Hello everyone, I'm Officer Llewellyn. Initially we got a shots fired call. I was running zone that night, so I took it. Officer Hosey backed me up. I arrived on scene. Initially I didn't hear any shots fired, nothing like that. We were told that shots were coming from inside the building at 178 2nd Ave North. Upon arrival, I checked because it's a liquor store / apartment complex and Airbnb that has the same address. Checked the bottom floor, couldn't see anything immediately, couldn't hear anything. At that time I requested a code to get access into the building. Was waiting on Officer Hosey to show up and the code. Shortly after Officer Hosey showed up, as soon as she got out of the car, almost immediately the RV started making an announcement. Somewhere along the lines, don't quote me exactly, but there's a large bomb within this vehicle. Your primary objective is to evacuate. I wasn't quite sure what I heard, so I looked at Officer Hosey just to verify we heard the same thing, and then it started over. At that time, I called and notified Sergeant Miller. He said, get everyone you can out there. I requested all units available from our precinct to come. They show up. I asked Officer Toppin and Wells to block off 2nd and Broadway, 2nd and Commerce. They did. Officer Sipos and Hosey went inside to start knocking on doors, and Officer Wells came up. At this time, Sergeant Miller's there. I asked him for any further directives, stuff like that. At that time, we set up our cars to kind of set up as much of a barricade as we can, keep people out. We go inside. Just before we go inside, probably about 5 minutes after we're there, I'd say that the timer then started counting down. Officer Hosey and Officer Wells are the first ones that noticed that. In between this, I did look at the RV, noticed that all the shades were down, and kind of walked around it to see if there was a tag, anything like that, to try and get more info. I did not notice one. From there, myself, Officer Hosey, Wells, and Sipos went into the building and knocked on all the doors we could to notify as many people as we could that we had a possible public safety concern and that we needed people to evacuate. We noticed that there was a basement exit, so we asked everyone to go down and out the basement. We essentially made contact with, I believe, 6, 7 apartments and asked them to evacuate. The rest, we never got an answer, so we moved outside and tried to move down the street. I went northbound towards the hotel up that way, and Officer Hosey, Sipos, and Wells continued southbound towards the other places. From there, pretty much sometime later, the music started, and I notified over the air to notify other officers, and then after the song, it continued to go back to the announcement for a little while. After it switched back, I did notice that there was a gentleman and his dog that came out of 217 2nd Avenue North. I noticed him. I went up to him to notify, hey, you need to get inside, notify anyone you can, and please evacuate. Shortly after that, the explosion went off. I got knocked to the ground. I immediately got up. Luckily, no injury, nothing like that. I noticed a gentleman in shock with his dog. I checked on him, got him inside, went back, checked on Sergeant Miller, who was inside his car at the time. He seemed all right. I opened his door. He was cutting his airbag that went off away. Then I ran down, noticed Officer Hosey putting out radio traffic, and I noticed Officer Sipos, to my left. At that point, they seemed okay, so I ran forward into kind of the debris area. I noticed what appeared to be 4 people that came out of, I believe, 178 2nd Avenue North that we weren't able to get contact with. They seemed in shock and in awe of what was going on. At that time, to get their attention, I yelled at them and told them they needed to get to safety and run. They took off running northbound on 2nd. I'm not sure where they went from there. From there, I did a quick sweep of the road and everything else, see if I could see anyone else, and I noticed that the other cars were on fire in the area. Wasn't sure if possibly they were going to explode too, so at that time I pulled back and resources started coming to us, and I just assisted the best I could with keeping people back from that point. So that's essentially the role I played, and I'm going to turn it back over.
Thank you, Tyler. Officer Brenna Hosey was the 2nd officer on 2nd Avenue that morning. Officer Hosey is a 4-year police department veteran and also assigned to the midnight shift at Central Precinct. Officer Hosey.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brenna. Like Tyler said, we got the shots fired call, so I was going to back him up on 2nd Avenue North. As he said, as soon as I got there and stepped out of my patrol vehicle, we started hearing the announcements being made. Kind of had that confused look on, is this really what we're hearing right now? After he notified Sergeant Miller, we were trying to think of the best way of action. We were making sure the entry code worked. As soon as Sipos showed up, he and I started knocking on doors, waiting for Sergeant Miller and everyone else to arrive on scene. We were able to clear the first floor, and then Sergeant Miller, in his thinking, had us come back out and move our patrol vehicles to a more strategic position, so if we needed to go back to our patrol cars, we wouldn't be affected at all. So I'm giving him credit for that, for probably not only saving our lives, but saving our patrol vehicles and the way that he had us positioned. So we go back in, start clearing floor by floor on the 2nd Avenue North apartments. Once we made contact with everyone we could and made sure that they were getting out of the building is when we started to move down, keeping in communication with dispatch, trying to get entry codes for all the Airbnbs that were on 2nd Avenue North, trying to make entry. At this point is when we heard the 14 minutes until detonation announcement, so we're moving as quickly as we can. We make it all the way down to 2nd and Commerce. There's actually a B detail officer that I'd been in contact with that lives in one of those apartments, asking him if he was okay, telling him what was going on, and then if he could start helping evacuate people out of his building, because we did not have access to it at that point. Once we'd made it to 2nd and Commerce, we realized there wasn't much else that we could do once we evacuated and made contact with everybody that we could. So I told everyone it's probably best that we just go back to our vehicles and regroup until the bomb squad gets out there and we figure out what we need to do from there. At that point, we had heard the 3 minutes until detonation. So myself, Llewellyn, and Sipos had headed back northbound on 2nd. I had made the turn onto Church Street while Tyler went to go talk to Sergeant Miller, and that's when the explosion happened. I was thrown forward, knocked to the ground, but I was able to catch myself. I was fine. At that point in time, I tried to get the air, but Amanda had beaten me to it, letting everyone know, or letting dispatch know, what had happened. I made a phone call to a loved one to let them know that I was okay, and then I ran to the intersection to check on Miller and Llewellyn to make sure they were okay. Saw Sipos running towards the intersection as well. That's what I got on the radio to make sure Wells was okay. Couldn't get a response from him, but from the blast he had some hearing loss. So that's when Amanda got on, said that he was okay. So I was just trying to make sure all of our people were okay, and then going from there, trying to figure out what was the best course of action to keep everyone that was either in the immediate blast area that we weren't able to evacuate, or anyone that was coming in, and how to best keep them safe.
Now I'd like to introduce you to Officer James Wells, also assigned to the Central Precinct midnight shift. James has been with us just under 2 years. Officer Wells.
Good morning, Officer James Wells. Shortly after the shots fired call came out, Officer Llewellyn had came over the radio and said I needed everybody here immediately. And just by the tone in his voice, we knew it was serious. And, he said it was a possible bomb situation and that Sergeant Miller was aware. At the time, I was sitting right next to Officer Toppin, so we got over there as quick as we could. Not knowing that the RV was the vehicle in question at the time, we actually pulled right in front of it. This is right across the street. We pulled up, and then when we heard the announcement, Toppin was like, "Is that the vehicle in question?" And Llewellyn said, "Yes." We immediately hopped in our cars and backed out, and then so we started setting up the perimeter to start shutting down Commerce and Broadway to make sure nobody could come in or out. And then Llewellyn called for more people to come help evacuate the building, which I did. At that point is when I heard, you have 14 minutes to evacuate the area. And at that point is when I started to prepare my mind for secondary things to happen. I actually told everybody when we come out to make sure we look at the high ground and the parking garages just in case, as I felt like maybe an active shooter might have followed that, just because it felt, at that moment, it felt real and it felt like there was going to be some secondary activity. So every time we came out of the building, we made sure that we were looking around and checking high areas, just making sure nobody was peeking around and looking at us. So we continue to go door to door, trying to get codes from dispatch to get in. We get down to Second and Commerce, and that's when we hear the 3 minutes as we coming out of the building. And at that point, I told them I was going to go back to my car and get my heavy plates, just mentally getting prepared for whatever was about to happen. And so as I'm putting my heavy plates on, Llewellyn tells me that Sergeant Miller told me to pull my car back because I was actually in the intersection at first. So then I pulled my car back in between the buildings, and which is the parking garage, and then Second and Commerce to get out of the blast radius. And at that point, I get out, and I'm starting to go back toward Llewellyn and Hosey. And as I'm getting ready to walk toward them, walking back toward the RV, and this might not be politically correct, but this is my truth. I literally hear God tell me to turn around and go check on Topping, who was by herself down on Broadway. And as I turn around, for me, it felt like I only took 3 steps. And then the music stopped, and as I'm walking back toward Topping now, I just see orange, and then I hear a loud boom. And as I'm stumbling, because it rocked me that hard, I start stumbling, I just tell myself to stay on your feet, stay alive. And I just take out in a full-out sprint, and I'm running toward Topping to make sure she's okay. And we kind of meet in the middle, and we just grab each other, check each other, and I'm yelling at her to get her gun out, because, like I said, I felt like there was going to be it just had a feeling that, it's just weird. It just felt like something out of a movie. And so we're checking on each other, and she's asking me, she's telling me that they're trying to raise me on the radio. I couldn't hear, so I just lost temporary hearing in my left ear. So as she yelling, I'm saying what, and a couple of explicitives, tell her I couldn't hear. And they get me to the paramedics. I call my wife immediately, let her know just before anything got out, to let her know that I was okay. And while I was in the ambulance, they were trying to get me to go to the hospital, and I just didn't want to be by myself at that moment, didn't want to leave them. And then I heard that there were 3 people that were injured, so I told the paramedics to take care of them. And I was like, per policy, I got 10 days to get checked out. So it's like, y'all go check on them, go check on the civilians. And then I immediately went to go find Topping, just kept asking where Topping was, and we found her, and that was my part in it.
Officer Michael Sipus, assigned to the Central Precinct's midnight shift. Michael's been with us also just under 2 years. Officer Sipus.
Thank you. So I was I believe the 3rd or 4th officer on scene of what at the time was a shots fired call. I pulled up in front of the building that the initial call came from. Didn't know at the time I was almost directly across the street from the RV. Exited my vehicle, heard it making the announcements, essentially telling us there was an explosive device in the vehicle, not to approach it, that we should be evacuating the area. At that point, I moved up the street a little bit, at which point I met up with Officer Llewellyn, Officer Hosey. We started making plans to get into the buildings, start knocking on doors to let families know what was going on and get them out of the building. I don't know the address off the top of my head, but the first building we went into was the one that the initial call had come from. Between myself and all the other officers knocking on doors, I think we made contact with 6 or 7 families, informed them that they needed to exit the building to the what would have been the First Avenue side to keep them off of the street with the RV. After we worked our way through the initial building, knocking on doors, we went back outside, at which point we started working our way southbound on 2nd Avenue North. Like these other officers said, we were in communication with dispatch, who did a fantastic job through the whole incident, trying to get door codes to get in and alert more families. I believe we made it into one more apartment building, if I remember correctly. I don't think we made contact with any families in that building. At that point, Officer Llewellyn, who was outside, let us know that the recording had changed. I believe that's when a song started playing. I don't know what the countdown was at that point. I know by the time we made it back outside after the last building we had checked, it was down to 3 or 4 minutes, I believe. At that point, we decided to work our way back up 2nd Avenue northbound. We had decided, like Officer Wells said, to get our heavy plates on to prepare for whatever might come after the countdown ended. At that point, I made it back up to Church Street. I rounded the corner to head towards 1st Avenue, where my car was parked. I'd actually just popped the trunk on my vehicle to get another piece of equipment out, at which point I just felt a push, basically. I was thrown into the trunk a little bit, turned around to see just a very orange sky and a lot of smoke. At which point I ran back towards 2nd Avenue North, as all the other officers did. Just wanted to make sure all the officers that I knew were in the area were safe. Like Officer Llewellyn said, there were a few people that had come out of an apartment building, so we did our best to get them out of the area as quick as possible. At that point, we just spent time keeping residents that had come outside, as well as pedestrians that were just trying to enjoy their morning, keeping them away from the area, trying to carefully explain what was going on and that they just needed to stay away for safety. Thank you.
Our 5th officer is Amanda Topping. Amanda has been with us for just under 2 years, also assigned to the Central Precinct's midnight shift.
Man, they got me closing this thing out. Oh my God. All right. So I remember that morning, I was sitting with James Wells. We were talking over in my zone, and I heard Tyler Llewellyn and Brennan go out to the call. So we're kind of listening. This is an odd call. So we're sitting there, and my wife had just called because it's towards the end of our shift, so she was seeing what time I was coming home. And so I'm talking to her, and I'm like, well, we're about to head to this call. It's a little strange. So I hung up with her, and we head down there, and we get there. We didn't really know too much about it. Unbeknownst to us, we park right next to it. So of course we moved because that seemed ideal. So, you know, I take my car down to 2nd and Broadway, and you know, Sergeant Miller wanted me to stay down there to help with his, you know, pedestrian traffic on Broadway, and you know, the buses were starting to do their routes and stuff. So of course I was listening and everything, and they went up to the apartments, and I kind of stayed down there and kept on going up to 2nd and Commerce to hear what the RV was saying, and that's just stuff that I'll never forget. You know, the sound of the announcement saying, you know, primary objective is to evacuate now, and it's a female voice, and yeah, it's just odd. And then, of course, I'm kind of pacing back and forth because I kept on having to turn pedestrians around. It was a weird feeling not being able to be with everybody else, but I knew that, I needed to stay where I was at. Because, you want to be with your detail, especially when you just have a feeling something's not right. And something that weird, just you don't get stuff like that. So, but I was standing there by my car and I heard Tyler say that music just came on. So I got, I went to go get closer and I heard it and I was like, oh my gosh. So I was about to get on the radio and say, I know it's almost not my place, but like everybody's getting out of the buildings, right? We need, I wanted everybody to be safe. But then I saw a group of them, which I couldn't really tell, but I was assuming was Brenna and Cypos and Tyler walk around the RV back towards their cars. So I kind of saw them. And I started walking up to 2nd and Commerce because I wanted to talk to them. I wanted to know, do we need to go to more buildings? What do we need to do? I was just getting really antsy. And I just talked to my wife again. Just told her that things were just really strange. And so, but as I'm walking towards them on the right side of the road, the right side of 2nd, I see Wells at his car. And I was like, well, he's closer, and I'll go talk to him, see what we need to do. So I don't know what told me to do this. It was really weird, but I decided to change my direction, go on the other side of the road, start walking towards Wells. So as I start walking towards him, he starts walking towards me. You can see on the camera too, the footage, I've seen it. And I told him I didn't think anybody would ever believe him how close he was. And I was probably about 10 steps away from him, 15. And we're just walking towards each other, and I just saw the biggest flames I've ever seen, the biggest explosion. I mean, and I just saw orange, and then him, and I saw him stumble. And I felt it, I felt the heat, the wave. And I don't know how I kept my footing, but I kind of blanked and I couldn't see him for a second, and I just lost it, and I just took off in a sprint towards him. And like he said, I've never grabbed somebody so hard in my life. I grabbed him, he grabbed me, and we just ducked into a doorway because we didn't know what was coming afterwards. And I'll never forget the windows shattering after the blast all around me. It kind of looked like a big prop from a movie scene, all the glass breaking at once. It hit me all over. But just being able to hold him and grab him, and then the first thing I could do is, you couldn't hear anybody at first. It scared the heck out of me, but just 423, there's been an explosion, and sent multiple medics because I didn't know what we had. And I was so scared that I just lost my entire detail because I didn't know where they were. I just saw them pass by it. So after that, we just, made sure that we felt a little bit safe enough to go back and regroup. And luckily I heard everybody on the radio, and didn't know how okay everybody was, but I knew everybody was alive. And so I was happy to hear that nobody else was seriously injured, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, can I go now?
All right, these officers have agreed to take just a few questions. Please, if you have a specific officer you want to ask of, identify that, or if you don't have a specific officer, we'll try to find the best one.
Where the bomb squad was? The Metro bomb squad, were they on the way?
Yes, the bomb squad was on the way. The bomb squad had been requested and they were on the way. Ma'am, right here.
When you described that there were shades on the RV, were there shades in the front as well? Did you ever see a person in or around?
Sir Llewellyn?
Yes, ma'am. The front had a shade as well to keep view completely obstructed. All the shades on the back windows were down as well, so you couldn't see in at all. I didn't see any person in or around it at all. When I first arrived, I did notice the RV, but with it being Christmas, I was like, maybe they're just visiting family and parked there. so I didn't pay much attention to it, but I did not notice anyone outside around it either when I first arrived. There, to my recollection, I went around behind it, just double check after the announcement started to see if we could get a tag for more information and stuff like that. I did not notice a tag anywhere. I didn't notice any kind of bracket for a tag even. So, unfortunately, couldn't give more information. Yes, what I specifically remember, and we found out later, what I remembered was downtown where the lights shine bright. Later, the ATF agent I spoke to pulled it up, and it's downtown by Petulia Clark was the specific song that was played.
I'm sorry, kind of speak up for me.
Talk about a moment where your thinking kind of changed and things got real. As you're hearing that audio recording, you're hearing 5 minutes, 4 minutes.
No, it wasn't a consistent countdown. It was like, hello, this is a warning. For your safety, evacuate the area. And that looped for a few minutes. And then as we were getting ready to go in the building, it changed to, you have 14 minutes to evacuate the area. And that's when my mindset changed, and we started looking at the building. And then there was also cameras on the RV, like surveillance cameras above the mirror. So you got the hangover part that hangs over the windshield. I'm sorry, I talk with my hands. And so you got the hangover part, and then you got the rearview mirror here. The camera set in between that. So it just, it felt like whoever was behind it was watching it. For me, it felt weird. All the cop lingo that you hear about the spider senses, about the hair standing up the back of your neck. All that went through my body, and then just immediately the training kicked in that we do as far as staying calm, but being vigilant and watching around us. So that became my primary objective, is to, as we're evacuating, also looking for any threats in the surrounding area.
As those minutes are counting down, what do you think you're preparing for?
I'm preparing for a shootout, and also getting as many people out as possible. So it's, multitasking in my thinking, just getting as many people out of these buildings as we can, and also ready to engage anybody that was not in this uniform.
You mentioned hearing another voice.
I was God. I'm not going to shy away from that. I am a spiritual person, and so I truly believe that when I do this job, I'm led by that voice. How I treat people, how I go about doing this job every day. That's what guides me, and I truly believe that that's what guided me in that sense, because I was literally getting ready to walk back toward that RV. And you watch the video, you can see that moment of clarity for me when I heard God say, go and check on topping. And so I was peeking around, looking like this, and then it's like, no, turn around, go check on topping. And so I turn around and start walking in the opposite direction. And then 3 seconds later, boom. So, I'm not going to shy away from that, because that's what saved my life. That's what got me to see my kids and my wife on Christmas. And good to see you has a completely different meaning for me now. So, yeah.
Can we do 2 more questions about anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
How close were you Thursday compared to how close this group is now?
What do you mean close as far as? Yeah, obviously, I already had a genuine feeling for all of them, but of course this is going to tie us together forever, for the rest of life. And so just the love for them is even bigger now, and Christmas will never be the same for any of us. So.
Officer Hosey.
Yes, sir.
Describe the moment that a police officer said that the police officer came to them, and when the officer heard the shit, he insisted even more that they evacuate. Do you remember that moment?
If it's the woman I'm thinking of, she lived in 178. I remember knocking on her door. It was Sipost and I knocked on her door, scared the bejesus out of her. I told her that there was a threat in the area and that we needed her to evacuate. She said, okay, let me get my kids. And that kind of just put my heart up in my throat. I don't have kids, but I have cousins and nieces, and people that I love that are small. So I'm thinking maybe like 1 or 2 kids. She ended up having 4 kids. And so as she's getting them out, and she's got a stroller, and she's got 2 in there, and then 2 helping her get stuff. And I'm asking her if there's anything like that I can help her with to help make this easier. She said no, she's okay, but she's being a little bit more insistent on like what's going on. And at that time, I kind of tell her like there's a more serious threat, and that's why we need you to go. So like I'm thankful that we were able to make contact with her and that she was awake and able to evacuate. Yeah. No, I mean, when something like this happens, it doesn't make any sense. And I was telling some other officers, like, if this is something you said would ever happen in Nashville, I would say that this was at the bottom of the list of anything that I thought would ever happen. And who knows why.
Did any of the officers find any evidence of shell casings, or did you even have time to look for that original shots fired call?
Not in between getting the call and then having to evacuate everyone. Where the shots fired call came from, we did not find any evidence of shots being fired. No shell casings, nothing like that. Anyone in the building that we made contact with said they didn't hear anything like that. So there was like the question that we raised was the loudspeaker that we heard playing gunshots to make it appear like shots had been fired. That was just a theory we came up with. We don't know if it actually happened or anything.
Got a question over here.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
You described the moment that you saw a man walking his dog. Have you seen, there's been surveillance video of that moment. Have you seen that video yourself?
No, ma'am, I have not.
How does that know? Because, I mean, you talk about how you guys have saved people's lives that day. How does that feel knowing that?
Overall, I don't know for what reason the gentleman or female, whoever it was that actually did this, gave the notice. I'm just grateful that we actually had time to try and help people clear out. I saw that gentleman. Gut instinct told me go get him and tell him to get inside, get his family, get out. And overall, I did that, and I'm just grateful that none of the shrapnel or anything like that hit me, him. I'm a big dog lover, so it's dog too. So just very grateful that no one was seriously hurt.
Do you know the circumstances under which people were injured and how they were injured or where they were at the time?
I personally do not know any of those circumstances.
One more question, please. One more. Yes, sir.
Coming from a loudspeaker outside of the RV or inside?
To me, it sounded like it was coming from inside the RV.
Through the window?
I don't know if they had like a mounted loudspeaker, kind of like our patrol cars do, to where it's in the grill or what, but I heard it coming from the RV itself. So, yes, you could hear it almost all the way down to Broadway and all the way up to Union almost. So, I'm sorry,
Sorry, had you seen the RV before during your patrols in the area?
No, I didn't notice it earlier in the night at all. And like I said, I noticed it when I first showed up, but with it being the holiday, I didn't think anything of it because people possibly visiting family.
Or even in past weeks?
No, I haven't seen it in past weeks or past nights even. I know there was one other over here. Yes, I feel very lucky to be alive, say hello to my family, say I'm uninjured, as well as all the other officers. I'm very grateful for the quick response from fellow officers, NFD, and everyone else.
Thanks, Tyler. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to emphasize these officers volunteered to be with you this morning. They weren't ordered to be here, they volunteered. And for those of you who applaud, thank you all very much.
Law enforcement sources told CBS News that investigators are looking into whether the suspect may have been targeting communications infrastructure. Witnesses told investigators he may have had an issue with 5G technology on online conspiracy theories stemming from it. The RV van, which contained the explosive device, had been parked at AT&T in downtown Nashville since Christmas Eve. But still, there is no way knowing what was the reason why he did this. You know, he picked the wrong way of doing this. Blowing something up, it's just not the right way of doing something. There's other ways of doing, like protesting towards AT&T of what they're doing. But, you know, something like this is just not the right way, especially on Christmas Day. The world is already having a hard time. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of businesses are closing. People lost their homes because of this. And now those businesses and people have to regroup and start rebuilding their lives again. You know, I was listening earlier that a lot of them were saying they had no place to go because of what he did. They don't know what they're going to do. I mean, you've got this pandemic. You got people that lost their jobs. Thank God the stimulus bill passed here. At least there's going to be another extension for the unemployment. So that's a good thing. And, you know, this is just so sad. I can't believe that something like this, how somebody could sit there and do something like this on Christmas Day. He must have had he had to have had some serious mental issues or something. You know, a lot of people got misplaced for what he did. Oh, I praise this, you know, the 6 officers that, you know, responded at the scene. They were very quickly at that. There could have been a lot of people injured. There was only 3. And there could have been a lot of deaths too, especially that officer, you know, who ran towards the RV and God told him, turn around and go. Check on his partner. Well, it is America that nobody did die, except, of course, the perpetrator. The common way, I tell you. Oh, this really upsets me. Well, that's going to be it for now for this video on this report. Any other updates I get on this, I will definitely put it up here on YouTube. I know that they're continuing to investigate this, so hopefully, you know, within a short period of time, they'll know his logic for doing this. Just sad. So, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so. Hit that notification bell to be notified when I do upload videos. And if you like this video and seen it all the way through, don't forget to hit that like button. We'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.